welcome to Candid Advisor, where I'm your advisor sharing with you life challenges and related to relationships, careers, you name it. Before I go any further, I want to thank and appreciate the subscribers who subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you and I thank you. I ask that if you find this information that I'm sharing informative, instructional, motivating, inspiring, and it gives you some type of guidance to going forward in the future, please let me know. Put a comment in the comments field. And if you have any questions as well or any general comments, I will reply. I had to take down a video that was posted up before because of legalities, quote unquote. So what I have done is be able to share that video with you on another platform. In all fairness, the videos themselves are located on Zeus, the Zeus network, where you have full access to them, all 3 parts, in fact. With that said, I want to apologize as well for the delay in uploading content. Just busy. That's the best way I can explain it. A lot of projects pulled in many different directions, many different areas, and I'm embarrassed to say I still need to improve my time management. Now, let me get to this as well. A real life scenario that I can provide tangible solutions towards. Okay? So that's the reason for me doing this. I can highlight the different aspects of that relationship and give you some insight or a different perspective on how to avoid those type of situations or conversations, or how to enhance them. It's not to cause any drama. It's not to sensualize their situation. It's not to feed into dysfunction. It's none of those things. It's pretty much a way to help us grow and unify as a community, particularly being, of culture of African American descent, minority descent, for the most part. This applies to all relationships, though. But I can only speak from this lens as an African American, as well as my experience. We're going to break it down. Needless to say, I've been in relationship recently. Well, not recently, about a while ago, a couple of years ago. I was in a 10-year relationship with a woman who had serious trauma. And I'm not going to put her business out there like that, but I just want to give you some context on where I'm coming from in regards to my advice on this. And when I say candid advice, I'm speaking from what I know. And if there are any questions that you ask me and I do not know, I will try and find out or refer to my network of connections and get that information for you. But getting back to my relationship, it was a 10-year relationship. 4 out of the 10 years was engaged. It didn't work out. It didn't work out because this woman that I was engaged with had serious pain and trauma. She was adopted, lived in a foster care home, was in a very toxic relationship, only 2 relationships at that point when she met me, was sexually abused, was shot by her boyfriend at the time. The bullet missed her heart by that much of an inch. She almost lost her life. Was raped by people in the industry, so to speak, and was, along with many other things. Some of the things I don't want to share because, for obvious reasons, privacy concerns, but she was very traumatized, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then I come onto the scene, I noticed this, and whether I didn't realize it at the time, but it affected me too, because I went into the relationship pretty much trying to heal her, trying to fix her, as opposed to coming into the relationship with both whole individuals. So you attract what you are. So I didn't realize at the time that I was going through some pain as well. Previous relationships that I've had, the type of dude or brother that I am, was selecting women who were kind of similar to women that I love, primarily, don't take this out of context, but my mom resembled an independent woman, strength. And those are the women that I found myself attracted to. What I didn't consider was the catering component or the humble component. And that's where I believe I got blindsided to a large extent. My selection criteria, selection crisis wasn't the best at that time. So this is what drew me to her. She fulfilled the need that I felt I had. I fulfilled the need that she felt she had, whether conscious or subconscious, if that makes any sense. So what ended up happening is, I would say kind of a year into the relationship, the warning signs and red flags were glaring in my face. But because I've never been in a relationship with someone who's had trauma to that level, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't, and you can say I'm born again, Christian, all that stuff. I believe God would take care of it. It will work out. You brought us together for a reason. Everyone is familiar to, not everyone, but a lot of people are familiar with that type of scenario or rationalization. So that's how I went into the relationship. And the last thing I wanted to do was give up on her. So a year into the relationship, it was trauma from the beginning. Distrust, she didn't trust me. Accusing me of looking at other women when I'm just looking down the block. I mean, it was like 3 days out of the week, it was some argument over something that made no sense whatsoever. It eventually grew into a relationship after years we've been in it, and she's, how can I say, accusing me of not doing this or accusing me of not being able to do certain things. And throughout the relationship, it was a test to a large extent for me, whereas I knocked down or checked off every box that she claimed I was inadequate in. So it eventually left her with nothing else to complain about and left her distraught because it was a situation that she didn't know how to handle. I'm going to get into this with the videos on this channel in later series, but I'll go into that in detail. But that's kind of what it was. So the final part, not final part, but the other component that I would like to add, there are many more, but for the sake of brevity, I'll keep it short, try and keep this in the summary type format. It pretty much came down to whenever she would make an argument and I would counter that argument, and my counter made sense and it registered, and she had to admit it and she had to own up to it, she would change the topic or change the subject. And that's how it would be. And then in a few of our conversations, when she couldn't change the subject or change the topic or divert or distract, she had to own it, and she owned it. She admitted it to the extent that she would say, "You're right." Where it left me saying, now, if I had not pushed back and defended myself to that extent and let it go on, she would have been left with that belief that was not true. So needless to say, the relationship became draining. It became toxic. That's the theme, or has been the theme for a while. It became a very unhealthy relationship. To eventually the relationship ended mutually. I'm proud to say that I didn't break up with her. Obviously, I'm not going to put herself up, but she made certain decisions that made it difficult for us to go on, so to speak. And I did my best to work with it, and it was a mutual separation. I'll leave it like that. So I said all that to say, this is the experience that I bring to the table as it relates to relationships. I also have experience in careers, information technology, which I just shared as well, organizational development and operations in the nonprofit sector, and just general life circumstances in general, not just in relationships, but in staff or organizational structures, collectives, partnerships, things of that nature. All right. So when you come to this channel, the Candidate Advisor channel, this is the resource where you can get that. And if you feel it to be beneficial to others, please, you know how I go. Like, share, subscribe, add comments. I guarantee you I will reply to as many comments as I can. If not all, I will do my best to reply to all, but if I can't get to all, I will get to as many of them as I can. You also will have access to my email. If you don't know where my email is, just put in the comment what's your email address. I'll email it to you. I'll put it in the description field as well. But it should be on the channel. What we're going to cover in this series is the 5 universal tips to a happy relationship. Now, I can run down 5 universal tips. No problem, like it's no big deal. But everybody does that, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to break it down into very detailed, specific tangibles is the best way I can put it. All right. An ideal relationship is not a relationship where there are no disagreements. There are no arguments. Okay, so let me clarify that, because men and women are made differently, think differently, are perceived differently, and have a different lens on the world. So obviously, there's going to be some type of conflict just in that by itself. Okay, so I want to make sure that that's clear. I'm not saying that any relationship doesn't have any of these arguments, but there are 5 universal tips to a happy relationship that I'm going to share now that exist in a healthy relationship. Okay, I know that probably sounds a little confusing, but I'm hoping you get it. Okay, arguments do exist in healthy relationships, but it's the type of arguments, and the arguments are for a purpose, and it leads to a solution, and it's never returned to again, if that makes any sense, right? If you address a certain situation, you'll conversate about it, you'll discuss it, you'll come to a resolution, then there's no need to have that same argument again if when you had it the first time, y'all came to a solution, unless one or both have amnesia and don't recall or remember the argument that you had before. Those are extenuating circumstances. But in the typical healthy relationship, that's not what happened. What Princess did was she explained to Ray J pretty much how she feels and why she did what she did, and her wanting need for real answers from Ray J. All right. This is what led to this scenario in Las Vegas, because if you recall, if I don't mention it already, I believe this was Ray J explained that I always care about where you are. She was like, but not in Vegas. All right. So based on that exchange right there, it's not as if Ray J doesn't care where Princess is or his children. But in that situation, when they were in Las Vegas, he didn't care. Apparently, over the course of their relationship, Ray has cared for Princess' whereabouts, which is what I just mentioned already, except for this trip in Vegas, which upset her. From Ray J's, and that was all right. So I wanted to make sure I clear that up. From Princess' perspective, she felt abandoned, which she mentioned, and she felt like part of abandonment was him not caring where she was. So that was one of her problems from that trip in Las Vegas, which led to where they are in this conversation. So now, from Ray J's perspective, given both sides, being fair, he distanced himself, quote unquote, blocked Princess from the exchange and phone calls they were having due to the paragraphs of discourse that they had between them that apparently, from Ray J's point of view, was damaging and disrespectful. And Ray J also explains that it was damaging and disrespectful on both sides. So he's not just saying she was the one sending disrespectful, damaging, disgraceful messages from her side, but he was as well. All right. Princess response to Princess' response to Ray J's point was, so you can't handle paragraphs. That's her response. It wasn't like the disrespect and the disparaging remarks and all that other stuff was an issue. That wasn't an issue for her. The issue was whether he could handle paragraphs or not. I find that funny. I'm sorry. It's like, yo, you're both disrespecting each other. Is there any consideration being put to that? Apparently, no, from Princess' point. But, and her response shows a complete disregard to the negative, damaging, and disrespectful discourse contained within those paragraphs, which is what I kind of already said. So, I mean, for some people, I guess there's no litmus test, or there's no boundaries in regards to, or clear understanding in regards to what is considered disrespectful. And as we're talking about 5 universal tips to a happy relationship, tip number 1 is communication. Sorry it took me so long to get to that in this intro. Tip number 1 is communication. So part of communication is being able to have a conversation with whoever you're in a relationship with that is not disrespectful, not damaging, and not disparaging. I think we all can agree on that. So if that isn't clear from the start of a relationship, you got a problem. And tip number one is not included in your relationship, which means it can easily veer off into an unhappy and unhealthy relationship. So to that point, her response was, you can't handle paragraphs, totally disregarding the type of paragraphs that were being exchanged. In your communication, you should hear the person out. So what does communication mean, basically, right? What is communicate? All right, communicate. I talk anyway. I talk anyway. I communicate all the time. But how do you communicate, right? Part of that is to listen. Whenever you're in a conversation and the person may be saying something that you're totally in disagreement with, completely, 100%, listen anyway. Allow, as it relates to relationships, allow your mate to express themselves and complete their thought entirely. Hear them out. And then based on what you heard, respond to what you heard first by simply saying, okay, let me understand. You're saying this. Is this what you mean? Is this what you said? This, is that right? Did I get that right? That'll give them an opportunity to think about, oh, no, I said that, but I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it that way. Oh, but that's what I heard you say. No, I didn't mean that. What I meant to say was, right? This continues that dialogue and conversation for the purpose of clarity and understanding. Okay, so this is what you meant. You said this, that. Is that what you meant? Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, I got you. All right, and then you said, follow that process. Then after you cleared everything, make sure you understood your mate. Then you follow with, okay, I hear what you're saying in regards to that point, but this is what I have a problem with regards to that point. This is how I feel. You said this, but you don't realize you did that, which caused me to do. You understand what I'm saying? That's how you have a conversation. That's the key element or foundation of communication, how it is done or should be done in a healthy relationship. That's what's not discussed or given prime examples of how it's done. Notice that wasn't done here. Notice Princess shared what she had to say and getting off her chest. Ray J heard her, said, okay, I get it. I heard you. I hear you. Okay. But this is why, or this is how I see it. This is where I'm coming from. You didn't hear that from Princess. She said, I don't want to. When Ray J was explaining his side, you heard Princess say, I don't want to hear that. I don't care about that. All I care about is the strippers. Did the strippers and attacking him, barraging him with the strippers. It cut off his ability to be able to explain himself. Whether she felt that that was relevant or important or not, it would have been a good action or good judgment to just hear him out. Because then he probably would have said something in relation to the strippers before initially to the point of strippers, where it would have gave her some clarity or validation, but she never allowed that to happen. So as she's explaining herself, Ray J is hearing her, I understand, and he's responding, this is why I did this. This is what I was doing. I know I told you this, but this is more detail on what I was doing. She heard her resources say, and she just took her resources, not giving any validation whatsoever to Ray J. And again, I'm just basing it off this conversation that they had here. I don't know what the conversation was like prior to this recording. I don't know what the conversation was like when they were in Vegas. I don't have any information on that. But this, to an extent, is just an object lesson on what not to do in a relationship with regards to communication. That's what that point is. So we're going to go to step 2, or tip number 2, with regards to a healthy relationship, which ties into communication, which is honesty. Thanks for listening. I hope this was of some value to you. I hope it was informational. Please don't hesitate to put comments in the comments field in regards to anything that wasn't addressed, or if there was anything that I said that was confusing or maybe contradictory. As I said, I will do my best to answer all comments. I want to thank you, my subscribers, again. I appreciate you. Like, share, and subscribe so we can grow the channel, get more information. I can address more things. I can bring some people in my network to discuss issues that you may find of interest, that I may have some experience in, or my colleagues may have some experience in, and we can give you our perspective on. So again, thank you so much. I will make more of a valiant effort to post up more content on this channel more regularly, pretty much weekly, to get you some information. And I would like to post stuff that you find of interest or valuable or beneficial to you. So please consider that. In that, like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video, part 2 of the Ray J and Princess discussion, where we will discuss honesty. And the third tip is trust. See you then.